They're not going to be able to tax away. You're not going to be able to tax away your equity by claiming that you now live in a luxurious home. Notwithstanding the fact it's the same house you've been in for 40 years that now happens to be worth more than $1.5 million or whatever the arbitrary number is that they set on what amounts to luxury or what level of equity should be taxed away from you, right? And all of these taxes literally are designed, again, getting back to my earlier discussion, is to remove the wealth and the prosperity of every individual person in, like us, human beings, right? And move it through these bloated bureaucracies, right, that they create, and then into the hands of the corporate overlords who run the World Economic Forum, right?
Yes.
So that's what this whole thing is about. It's just the corrupt criminal scheme that Albertans will be able to vote themselves out of. So no capital gains tax, no luxury tax, all those taxes, all those federal taxes will be gone. And then on top of it, $70 billion a year will no longer be leaving Alberta to go to, Quebec, Ontario, the rest of those places, filtered through this massive, federal bureaucracy, have it all spread around between all the people that vote the right way, liberal, and then to give only out of 70 billion, to only give Alberta 30 billion back ostensibly in federal services. Some of which include the Coast Guard. Alberta doesn't have a coast. Some of these services that count into that 30 billion include the Canadian Navy. Well, we're not going to need a Navy. We'll just need an Air Force. You'll need an Army and an Air Force, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's what we're selling to Albertans. The day you vote for independence is the day that you no longer have to file a federal income tax return. The government of Alberta, obviously is going to have to speed up, what it's doing and expand its own revenue department. It has one. It collects corporate taxes in Alberta, to collect all corporate taxes in Alberta, and then to assess, a flat 10% income tax on all Albertan citizens, where everybody pays, a flat 10% of their income, above a certain threshold. Let's say it's $20,000 or whatever, 10% on everything above that for everybody all the way up the ladder. And, and everybody, is going to live better than they've ever lived. Right. In fact, I'll tell you a funny little anecdote, if you want to hear it. Yesterday, I was coming back from a breakfast meeting where I was meeting with a group of very influential Calgarians with regard to this particular topic. Right. And so I got pulled over on the way home and I've been worried about this for years. The day they put them up, I was pissed off. So we have one set of traffic lights on Highway 22 going into Calgary from the country. Okay. Those traffic lights have no real reason to be there other than they all have these big cameras on top of them to read license plates going in and out of Calgary. And I'm sure with the eventual idea for all these little World Economic Forum monkeys that want to control every aspect of our lives, that down the line, the World Economic Forum would then be reading our license plates and then telling us that we're going into town too often for groceries, we're driving too much, we're doing this, we're doing that, and then start assessing the surcharges for every time we want to go into Calgary without providing them a good reason, right?
No, this has already happened in places in Europe.
Oh, no. But let me tell you what's now happening in Alberta. So I live in the country. We have farm vehicles. I'll be the first to admit I'm not always the best at paying attention to whether the registrations are up on every vehicle.